Okay, dear students, in the last class, we saw the fight between the cobra and the mongoose and how the myna and the crow took part in the fight and how the crow was killed and the mongoose also killed the snake. Okay, now let us continue. When I had also made a cautious descent from the tree and returned to the house, I told grandfather of the fight I had seen. He was pleased that the mongoose had won. He had encouraged it to live in the garden, to keep away the snakes, and fed it regularly with scraps from the kitchen. He had never tried taming it because wild mongoose was more useful than a domesticated one. From the banyan tree, I often saw the mongoose patrolling the four corners of the garden, and once I saw him with an egg in his mouth and knew he had been in the poultry house, but he hadn't harmed the birds, and I knew grandmother would forgive him for stealing as long as he kept the snakes away from the house. The banyan tree was also the setting for what we were to call the strange case of the grey squirrel and the white rat. The white rat was grandfather's. He had bought it from the bazaar for 4 annas, and I would often take it with me into the roots and branches of the old tree, banyan tree, where it soon struck up a friendship with one of the squirrels. They would go off together on little excursions among the branches. Then the squirrel started building a nest. At first, she tried building it in my pockets, and when I went indoors and changed my clothes, I would find straw and grass falling out. Then one day, grandmother's knitting was missing. We hunted for it everywhere, but without success. Next day, I saw something glinting in the hole in the banyan tree. Going up to investigate, I saw that it was the end of grandmother's steel knitting needle. On looking further, I discovered that the hole was crammed with knitting, and amongst the wool were 3 baby squirrels, all of them white. Grandfather had never seen white squirrels before, and we gazed at them in wonder. We were puzzled for some time, but when I mentioned the white rat's frequent visits to the tree, grandfather told me that the rat must be the father. Rats and squirrels were related to each other, he said, and so it was quite possible for them to have offspring, in this case, white squirrels. Okay, now let's see what does that mean. When I had also made a cautious descent from the tree, cautious, careful. When I made a careful descent from the tree, descent, getting down. So I got down the tree very carefully. Why? Because just a few minutes before it was a battlefield where the fight between the mongoose and the snake had taken place, and returned to the house, and I went back to my house. I told grandfather of the fight I had seen. And I told grandfather about the fight I had seen. He was pleased, happy. He was very happy that the mongoose had won. So he was very happy that the mongoose had won. He had encouraged it to live in the garden. So he had encouraged, he had given support, പ്രോത്സാഹിപ്പിക്കുക. He had encouraged to live in the garden, to keep away the snake. So why had he encouraged the mongoose to live in the garden? To keep away the snakes, and fed it regularly with scraps from the kitchen. Scrap is the waste food. So he would give the waste food from the kitchen. He had never tried taming it. Taming, make it a pet animal. So he had never tried to make it a pet animal. അതിനെ ഒരു വളർത്തുമൃഗമാക്കാൻ അദ്ദേഹം ആഗ്രഹിച്ചിരുന്നില്ല. Because wild mongoose was more useful than a domesticated one. Why? What is the reason? Because he believed that wild mongoose was more useful than a domesticated one. What is a domesticated? One which grows in the house. Animals which are there in the house are called domestic animals. So he did not like a domestic mongoose because he felt that wild mongoose was much better. From the banyan tree, I often saw the mongoose patrolling the four corners of the garden. So when I was sitting on the banyan tree, I would see the mongoose patrolling. Patrolling means going around. I would see the mongoose going around the four corners of the garden. And once I saw him with an egg in his mouth. And one day I saw him that he was carrying an egg in his mouth and knew he had been in the poultry house. Poultry. What is poultry? The chicken. So I knew he had been in the chicken house, but he hadn't harmed the birds. But he did not do any harm to the birds. പക്ഷികളെ യാതൊരു ഉപദ്രവവും വരുത്തിയിട്ടില്ല. Which is the bird here? The chicken. And I knew grandmother would forgive him for stealing as long as he kept the snakes away from the house. And I knew one thing. What is it? The grandmother would forgive him. Forgive would not make it a problem. ക്ഷമിക്കുക. For stealing as long as he kept the snakes away from the kitchen. As long as he kept the snakes away from the house. So the grandmother will not have any problem in his taking away the egg. But one thing is there. What is it? He should keep the snakes away from the house. The banyan tree was also the setting for what we were to call the strange case of the grey squirrel and the white rat. So on the banyan tree, there was also a strange case. Strange means not common. So on the banyan tree, there was a strange case. There was a not common case. So what was it? Of the grey squirrel and the white rat. So on the banyan tree, there was a strange case of the grey squirrel and the white rat. The white rat was grandfather's. So the white rat belonged to grandfather. He had bought it from the bazaar. So he had bought it from the bazaar market. He had bought it from the market for 4 annas. Anna is an old Indian currency. So he had brought it from the bazaar for 4 annas. But I would often take it with me into the roots and branches of the old tree. But I is the boy, he would take the white rat with him to the banyan tree when he went on the top of the banyan tree. So into the roots and branches of the old tree. banyan tree where it soon struck up a friendship with one of the squirrels. And on the banyan tree, this white rat made friend with one of the squirrels on that tree. They would go off together on little excursions among the branches. And what would these two do? They would go off together on little excursions, trips, yatra. So they would go on little excursions among the branches. So where will they go for a trip? എങ്ങോട്ടാ യാത്രയ്ക്ക് പോവുക? Among the branches of the banyan tree. ആ മരത്തിന്റെ കൊമ്പുകളിലേക്ക്. Then the squirrel started building a nest. Then the squirrel, it started building a nest. At first, she tried building it in my pockets. In the beginning, the squirrel tried to make the nest in my pocket. And when I went indoors and changed my clothes, I would find straw and grass falling out. So, after coming down from the banyan tree, when I go to my room and change my clothes, I would find straw and grass. Straw is a dry grass, vaikol, and grass falling down from my pocket. Then one day, grandmother's knitting was missing. So what is knitting? This is the knitting. It's a kind of a cloth made from wool, used during winter season. തണുപ്പ് കാലത്ത് ഉപയോഗിക്കുന്ന വസ്ത്രമാണ്. So grandmother's knitting was missing. We hunted for it everywhere. Hunt, search, tirayuga. We hunted for it everywhere. We hunted for this. What? We hunted for this knitting everywhere, but without success. But we could not find it. Going up to investigate. Investigate means find out. So going up to find out, I saw that it was the end of grandmother's steel knitting needle. So I went up to find out what was that shining thing. And I found out that it was the end of grandmother's steel knitting needle. What is a knitting needle? This is the knitting needle. It's made up of steel and it can even be of wood. So this is called the knitting needle, which is used for making woolen clothes. So it was the end of grandmother's knitting needle. On looking more, I discovered that the hole was crammed with knitting. So when I looked more, what did I find? Discover, find out. I discovered that the hole was crammed, filled. The hole was filled with knitting. So it was filled with the woolen clothes. And amongst the wool were 3 baby squirrels. And in the wool were 3 baby squirrels, all of them white in color. And in the wool, you could find 3 baby squirrels, and all of them were white in color. Grandfather had never seen white squirrels before. So even grandfather was seeing the white squirrels for the first time. And we gazed at them in wonder, surprise, gaze. We have come across the word look. So we looked at them in wonder. We were puzzled, confused, ആശയക്കുഴപ്പം. For some time, we had some confusion for some time. കുറച്ചു നേരം ആശയക്കുഴപ്പം. But when I mentioned the white rat's frequent visit to the tree, but when I told my grandfather about the white rat's frequent visit to the banyan tree, frequent, often, തുടർച്ചയായ. So I told him that the white rat would visit this banyan tree very often. Grandfather told me that the rat must be the father. So grandfather told that the rat must be the father of these white squirrels. Rats and squirrels are related to each other. They have some kind of relation. they belonged to the same family. He said, so it was quite possible for them to have offspring, children. So it's quite possible for them to have children. So offspring means children. In this case, white squirrels. In this case, white squirrels. And in this particular case, it was white squirrels. So that was what was the explanation given by grandfather about the white squirrels. ആ വെള്ള അണ്ണാനെ കുറിച്ച് ഗ്രാൻഡ്ഫാദറിന്റെ വിശദീകരണമായിരുന്നു. What was it? That the rat must be the father and the rat and the squirrel belong to the same family. So it's quite possible for them to have children. As they belong to the same family, ഒരേ കുടുംബത്തിലാണ് റാറ്റുകളും squirreluകളും. So they can have children. I think you are familiar with the children of fox and dogs, right? നമ്മൾ പറയുന്ന നായ്ക്കുറുക്കൻ. So they are the offspring of dog and fox. They belong to the same family. So this is also the same case. Okay, now let's look at some questions which will help you to understand the lesson. What prevented grandfather from taming the mongoose? So what prevented grandfather from taming the mongoose? Yes, what is your answer? Quite simple. You can find it from your textbook. So what prevented grandfather from taming the mongoose? Because wild mongoose was more useful than a domesticated one. Next question. Why would grandmother forgive the mongoose from stealing the eggs? So why would grandmother forgive the mongoose from stealing the eggs? Yes, what's your answer? Grandmother would forgive the mongoose for stealing as long as he kept the snakes away from the house. So she would forgive if snake is not allowed in the house. She doesn't mind the mongoose stealing the eggs. Okay, next question. Who was the new friend of the squirrel? And how did they enjoy the friendship? So who was the new friend of the squirrel? The white mouse was the new friend of the squirrel. And how did they enjoy their friendship? Yes, they would go off together on little excursions among the branches of the banyan tree. Okay, the next question. How did the boy come to know that the squirrel was building a nest? So how did the boy come to know that the squirrel was building a nest? When he went indoors and changed his clothes, he would find straw and grass falling out. So how did he know that the squirrel was building a nest? When he went indoors and changed his clothes, he would find straw and grass falling out. Okay, next question. What was the wonder that nature had kept for them in the nest? So what was the wonder that the nature had kept for them in the nest? Yes, white squirrels. So the wonder which nature had kept for them in the nest was white squirrels. And now is as I okay, now let's look at some and amongst the additional questions where three what made the grandfather all pleased? What made the grandfather happy? The boy couldn't stop wondering about the news that the mongoose if he scribbled down this unforgettable sight when he heard that the mongoose had defeated the cobra. He was very so the boy was surprised. Next question. White baby. From where did grandfather bring the white rat? And he had brought it from the market for 4 annas. So you have to prepare. Next one. What happened to grandmother's knitting? And I will tell what happened to grandmother's knitting. Okay, dear children, thank you. The knitting was wonderful day. The knitting was missing. Next question. From where did they find the knitting? From where did they find the knitting? From a hole in the banyan tree. Okay, now let's come to activity 1 of your textbook. Okay, now let's come to completing the story tree of the activity 1 of your textbook. So in the story tree, first you have the characters in adventures in a banyan tree. So let's see the characters. The boy, then grandfather, grandmother, gray squirrel, cobra, mongoose, crow, myna, and the white rat. So these are the characters in adventures in a banyan tree. Okay, the next is the main events in the story. So what are the main events? The boy's friendship with the squirrel, then the fight between the cobra and the mongoose, and the friendship between the squirrel and the white rat, and the birth of white baby squirrels. So these are the main events in the story. The setting. So where is the story taking place? In a banyan tree in Dehra, a valley at the foot of the Himalayas. Is that the only place? No. Grandfather's house. So these are the two places where our story takes place. Okay, now let's come to the activity 6 of your textbook. You will find the silhouettes of some scene. What you have to do is, you have to look at that picture and tell what does it mean. Okay, you find the first picture. Let's see. So what is this about? The small squirrel became friendly and familiar enough to take food from his hands. The next one, you find something over here. What is it? The boy built a small platform halfway up the tree on which he would spend the afternoon when it was not too hot. The next one, you find something over here. The myna and the crow decided to take part in the fight and they dive at the cobra. What is this one? The mongoose wins the fight and drags the snake into the bushes. Okay, what is this image? This is the white rat and this is the gray squirrel. Yes, the gray squirrel and the white rat became friends and go for little excursions among the branches. And the last one, you find something over here. What is it? The boy discovers 3 white baby squirrels. Okay, that's what is for today. Thank you.